I forgot to do a history video yesterday, didn't I? All right. So we're up to the 1948-49 season, and you'll notice a shift. Toronto Maple Leafs shift down to below 500. Detroit leads the way 34-19-7. This young Gordie Howe kid looks like he might be something pretty good. Boston Bruins are next at 29-23-8, followed by Montreal at 28-23-9. Toronto 22-25-13. They only make the playoffs because the Blackhawks at 21-31-8 and the Rangers at 18-31-11 both fell apart down the stretch. If not, the Leafs would have been one of those rare teams that missed the playoffs after winning the Stanley Cup. February 3rd, 1949, Turk Broda becomes the first goalie in Leafs history to record 250 wins for the team. The Hart Trophy ends up being won by Sid Abel of the Detroit Red Wings. Roy Conacher wins the Art Ross for the Chicago Blackhawks. So despite the fact that Chicago's down here, they can score. They just have problems in other parts of the game. The Calder goes to Penty Lund of the New York Rangers. Vezina goes to Bill Durnan of the Montreal Canadiens because of course it does. His goals against average is always at the lowest, it seems. And it's a Montreal tradition that really, honestly, has continued almost up until present day. You look at Carey Price, and right now he's kind of looking like he's kind of down and out. Yeah, the Montreal Canadiens are kind of down and out. But historically, Montreal's been excellent defensively and in net. And the Lady Byng goes to Bill Quackenbush of the Detroit Red Wings. The playoffs, well, they turn everything on their ear. So again, you've got teams 1 versus 3, 2 versus 4. So the Bruins have the Leafs. Montreal has Toronto. A system that would just drive everybody insane now. The semifinal between Montreal and Detroit is a barn burner. Detroit wins the first game 2-1 at home in triple overtime. They lose game 2 in overtime 4-3. Montreal wins game 3 at home to take a 2-1 series lead by a score of 3-2. They then lose at home 3-1 to tie the series at 2. Detroit wins at home 3-1. Montreal wins at home 3-1. Detroit wins at home 3-1 in game 7. Thus, they move on to the Stanley Cup Final with a 7-game win over the Montreal Canadiens, led by Maurice Richard. Boston plays Toronto. Toronto wins both games in Boston, 3-0 and 3-2. So they come in as a team well below, 3 games below 500. And obviously the favorites should have been Boston in this series, but with Boston losing the first 2 at home, yeah, it's done. Boston wins game 3 in Toronto, 5-4 in overtime, but Toronto wins game 4, 3-1. And then they go in and beat Boston again at home, 3-2. So Boston loses all 3 games at home in the series against Toronto. That's how most series between Toronto and Boston ends, right? With Toronto winning it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how it works. And honestly, all kidding aside, in this series, Toronto and Montreal are really the playoff teams to beat, aren't they? In the finals, Toronto just turns it on. Must have been frustrating for fans of Detroit. They win 3-2 and 3-1 in Detroit. The first game is in overtime. Then they win both games at home 3-1 and 3-1. So Toronto wins and sweeps the Stanley Cup for the 2nd straight year, and it makes 9 straight wins in the final. So this record, deceptive. When they need to, Toronto turns it on, and they win. And yes, they put up a record that if a team did that now, they wouldn't make the playoffs, but they did, and they won the Cup. And they're the first team since Chicago won it to win it with a below 500 record. And I don't think that's the last. I haven't cheated and gone ahead in the book yet, but I don't think that's the last time a team with a sub 500 record wins the Stanley Cup. But hey, Toronto, that's 3 straight Stanley Cups. They are the first team in history to do that. They won't be the last. And Montreal's going to have all kinds of nice runs. So if you want to see Montreal jerseys, this is going to be the series for you. But Toronto's the champion this season, 1949. And of course, there are going to be people saying, and 2019 too. We'll see. We'll see, but I can understand the optimism. Anyways, there you go. Toronto Maple Leafs, Stanley Cup champs, 1949. And I didn't have a whole lot else to report on because the 48-49 season was just one of those years where everything just kind of slides through. Everything goes pretty darn well. With the exception of Frank Boucher being fired by the New York Rangers and Lynn Patrick having to take over. But the Rangers are going to go on a run next season. And we'll talk about that tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. I'll talk to you again soon.